seeing us there. We're already getting some folks, and I think we are all set. Thank you very much, Stephen. Okay, so welcome everyone. I am Village President Sheena Collum, joined by our amazing planners from Topology tonight, Will and Greer, and our incredible chairman of our South Orange Planning Board, none other than Harold Colton Max. So this is the third night, right? We kicked off on Tuesday night where we talked about the introduction to the master plan, essentially how we were able to engage not only our committees, our boards, and our commissions, but we had a series of neighborhood ambassadors. In fact, all the people who volunteered to help us solicit input totaled well over 170 people. We were having public workshops at our Performing Arts Center. We were in the downtown in storefronts, throwing up maps and visioning kind of thoughts where people could participate. Our neighborhood ambassadors were literally hosting face-to-face. It seems so different to say that right now, but in-person events with our fellow neighbors to talk about these different things that were important to South Orange. And as I said, after the pandemic started, we put a halt to the master plan. We had to redirect so many of our resources to really working with the community to focus on what was in front of us, which was addressing COVID-19. But I'm so thrilled that we're back on track. This is a really exciting time, especially as we approach, 2021. There's a lot of positive things that are coming down the pipeline, and getting this master plan over the finish line is definitely back to being a priority. And so I thank my fellow colleagues on the Board of Trustees, Trustee Hilton, Trustee Summer Jones, Trustee Donna Collier, Trustee Bob Zuckerman, Trustee Stephen Schnall, and Trustee Walter Clark for their incredible support of this initiative, and all of you especially who have participated. So just quick recap, right? So Tuesday night, we hit the introduction, right? That was just the overview of what this master plan was, the people involved, how we got to this moment in time. And then we hit the land use element, which is really where we start talking about development and growth and responsible growth, and how what we heard back from the participants was that we want to be an inclusive and equitable community. And how do we design land use in a way that promotes attracting more people to our community to support our businesses with less vehicles, people who get to enjoy all the amenities that South Orange has to offer? How do we take underutilized and blighted properties and really bring some revitalization to our community? One of the great ideas is creating this village green in the heart of our downtown. So many exceptional things in the land use element that I really encourage you to spend a lot of time focusing on that. And then last night we went into mobility. And what did we hear about mobility is that if we're going to make investments, people aren't saying we need more surface parking or spend $25,000 of parking space in a structured parking spot. If we're going to make investments, it should be about public health and wellness, and focusing on walkability and safety, and the way that seniors and children can feel safe walking in the various corridors. We were introduced to a lot of ways of multimodal advancements in the way that we use bicycling and the way that we walk from place to place, and a lot of exceptional ideas out there in how we can really streamline the way that we think about our complete streets and all users of all of our roads all of the time. And so thank you to Arterial, who joined us last night, who took us through that. And tonight we're approaching the elements of historic preservation and also quality of life. Now, this is really important here, because while we're seeing new construction and we're certainly seeing a lot of redevelopment, what we heard from the neighborhoods was the historic character, right? When we get into some of our single family zoning, we're seeing support for accessory dwelling units and ways that we can allow people to age in place or be able to augment income to be able to pay some of these exorbitant taxes. But overall, people want that's transit-oriented development. I am in TOD right near, that's the train going by. But what we heard from our residents was the beautiful historic character of our residential neighborhoods is something that must be preserved, that has to be a priority for the village moving forward, and creating a framework so we can effectuate some of those goals in a very thoughtful manner. So I know we have folks from our Historic Preservation Commission here and our Historical and Preservation Society, a lot of reports from the past that we were able to incorporate. And on the quality of life element, we have folks like those who volunteered with our River Greenway project, our Environmental Commission. We have representatives from our Farrell Field Park Conservancy. So when we think about our open spaces as assets and ways that we utilize our land, or we assemble more land for those purposes, these groups have also been wildly instrumental in helping, as we call it, shape our shared future. So with that said, I just want to make sure everybody knows these are high-level presentations. You can read all 250 pages of goodness and wonderfulness on somasterplan.com. You can call it somasterplan.com, whatever makes you feel good. You go there, 250 pages. You don't have to go through every single page. You can focus on elements that really pique your interest. But right now we're trying to follow a timeline where we're trying to get as much feedback as possible by the end of the month, because we're taking all of that, we're going back to the final document, or draft document rather, and making sure that we're aligning all these comments and suggestions in a very, very thoughtful manner. We do not have live chat. We're not doing Q&A tonight because we have one place where we're holding all of our comments and questions, and then we're going to come back to you. So again, that's somasterplan.com. There's a survey there. In the survey, there's a comment section. And then we also have Will with us. Will, wave to everybody. Will has got his personal phone number and his email address there. So if you say, you know what, I'm not going to do the Survey Monkey, you're going to get Will. You're going to get Will live to answer all of your questions and provide you any answers that you need, and really take you through the process if you need some additional help. So with that said, we're ready to rock and roll. Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. Again, please share this video. For those who aren't on social media, this is not the only way to watch this video, right? These are being recorded. They're going to be posted on the website. We're going to have all 3 videos up in a very short period of time. So don't worry if you're missing it live or your neighbors couldn't be here. We're going to make sure that the videos are there as well, and everyone can participate. So Topology, why don't you go ahead and take it away.
Well, thank you very much. Stephen, if you would, pass me the ball and I will begin the presentation. All right, are folks able to see my screen okay? Thumbs up, or okay, thank you very much. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Will Kurzenberger, a project planner with the planning firm Topology. I've been a part of this master planning process since its earliest days, and it is an absolute pleasure to be back with you all this evening for this, the third and final night and presentation of the week on the South Orange Master Plan. Tonight's session will include a brief overview of what a master plan is, the process that we followed to draft this plan, how it's organized, and the key ideas and guiding principles that informed it. And while this will not be a comprehensive review of every component of the historic preservation and quality of life elements, we want to make sure that we are setting each of you up for success when you are able to take a look at the full draft plan that's available again on somasterplan.com or somasterplan.com. And finally, we're going to discuss the next steps of the process and when you might expect to see this go for the planning board for adoption. So as mentioned before, this is a public information session only. And I should mention that the previous 2 evenings presentations, along with this one, will be made available both on the Village's YouTube account and also on somasterplan.com. Where also in an effort to collect feedback as efficiently and as even-handedly as possible. We have the survey that was mentioned previously. However, we don't want to constrain anyone's ability to provide feedback in a way that is comfortable for you. And so you're certainly welcome to send us an email or give us a call. Just ask that you help you as best you can, provide us as much detail about which parts of the plan which sections or page numbers you'd like to discuss. And you can send those emails to masterplan@southorange.org or my personal work email, which will be shown later in the presentation. What is a master plan? Well, in brief, a master plan is a 10-year strategic blueprint for the village. And by law, parts of it are a prerequisite for you all to be able to establish local policies such as your zoning ordinance, for example. For this master plan, we had probably the most robust civic engagement process I've ever seen, let alone been personally a part of for any planning project. I'm sure many of you were a part of it and perhaps remember meetings such as this one that was convened at SOPAC. And all the more impressive to me is the eagerness that the community showed in taking ownership of that process and allowing us to expand our reach by training volunteers to convene listening sessions of their own. And mind you that this, what you see here is just a part of the whole outreach structure that was put together with for this. And that outreach process allowed us to hold now over 46 engagement events, promote online outreach materials that reached thousands of people, all of which gave us truly countless public comments to inform our work. So it was right around this time last year that we had hoped to be doing just this, but unfortunately 2020 had other plans for us. And in hopes of waiting for the opportunity to meet with you all in person in a way that we felt was right and did do justice to the process we had followed from the outset, the plan was held on ice for a while, but recognizing that that kind of opportunity still might be quite some time away, we all decided that now was the right time to get this done. And so here we are in a public review period of the draft plan. And we're asking for all of you to have feedback on that draft returned to us, ideally by the end of this month. A little bit about the overall plan before we dive into tonight's elements of focus. So while each individual element of the plan has its own goals, there are some overall goals that kept coming up in all of our conversations with folks that became the overarching vision for this plan, which I'll read through real quickly here. It's provide dignified housing for all residents, creating beautiful, functional places and spaces, protecting the natural environment, developing more amenities for residents to enjoy, preserving historic buildings and sites, and strengthening the village's unique progressive culture. Those are the principles that you will see steeped through all of the ideas and all of the elements of this plan. The plan itself is organized into 4 elements along with an introduction. And it is within these that the real meat of this document can be found. And those elements are land use and community forum, mobility, and as a reminder, presentations on both of those elements, again, are available on the village's YouTube account, as well as somasterplan.com. And historic preservation and quality of life, which we'll be discussing this evening. Each one of these elements are organized in basically the same way, which reflects the planning process that we followed. First, a set of findings that gives an overview of the existing conditions and trends, a set of higher level goals or aspirational statements, and then finally, objectives and strategies, which are really like project management tools where we say, okay, how are we going to make the village more equitable and progressive, for example? What does it actually mean? And what are the measurable action steps you can follow to bring that goal to a reality? Um, so without any further ado, I'm going to invite your very talented land use board planner, Ms. Greer-Patras, to provide you with an overview of the historic preservation element.
Thank you very much, Will. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you just fine.
Now, Will, my question for you is, if people are calling you directly, do you put on the bow tie for each call, or is that just for tonight?
Depends
Upon
on whether or
request.
not there's video. Yeah, upon request, always.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. And for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Greer-Patras, and I am part of the topology team that serves the village's planning needs. I've been with the village 2 years, and I provide guidance to the planning and zoning boards on land use applications. And I spend a few days a week in South Orange, zoning officer and planner. So on my drives in and out and around to eat and my walks, I get to drive through the streets and always appreciate the beautiful architecture that's built and what kind of a life that gives the community. As a planner, my interests lie in how people interact with places. So the relationship between the past and present buildings and what it means for the community is always in the forefront of my mind. It's my goal for 2021 in South Orange to be able to take these visions and lifestyles about how we want to live our best life and actually put them into boots on the ground policies so that we can actually feel the changes, the effects of the changes that we want to implement. So through the methods that both Sheena and Will had mentioned before, please get in touch, stay in touch, and I look forward to working with you. So without further ado, the historic preservation element. So the historic preservation element of a master plan is actually one of the most specifically guided elements in the municipal land use law. The municipal land use law includes specific language on the scope of what the historic preservation element should be. So it serves 3 main functions. First, it should indicate the location and significance of historic sites and districts. Second, it sets the standards that are used to define and assess the historic significance. And third, it can evaluate the impacts of other elements on this preservation element. So this plan that we have in draft here for you does just that. It includes the list of significant historic sites and districts, many of which that have been accumulated through previous studies, including the 1986 Essex County Survey and the 2009 Acritarian and the 2016 Historic Preservation Ordinance of South Orange Village, which includes 46 sites. It also provides an overview of really notable properties and architectural styles through the village. It's a beautiful walkthrough of some of the neighborhoods. It points out the wide range of styles and dates that we have in town, both of historical significance and also architectural significance. So if you're looking and most interested in kind of the beautiful pictures as it relates to architecture, that would start on page 176 in our draft. And it's a great record of what, for what it's a great record that will last the test of, that will stand the test of time. So this is night 3 of this rollout. So using the municipal land use law framework and the criteria listed, we made the following findings. First, the village has a body of architecture that is almost unparalleled in its diversity. You'll see there everything ranging from wonderful mid-century modern to early Victorian. There's really a range over time and geography. And the character of several neighborhoods are such an integral part of the village's identity and appeal. If you ask people what they love about South Orange, one of the first things they'll say is absolutely the feel of the character of the neighborhood and the feel of the community. Mostly mentioned in this is the discussion of Montrose Park, of course. The streetscapes in the village are often noted because of the iconic gas lamps and the traditional streetscape character that was built, 100 and 200 years ago, but still cherished today. Okay, so based on these findings, we were able to, before we jump there, this was one of our findings. I think this is a great map, but it shows the geography of where and when properties were built. So you'll see that the darkest purple here is before 1865. And after 1970 is the lighter purple. And you'll see that there's really some concentrations here, but there's a significant amount of properties that are older than 100 years in our village, which is really a special thing and should, be protected. So based on the findings and the reviews and research of the previous studies, we developed the following goals for our historic preservation element. The first is to continue to establish and enforce the regulations that protect the village's built heritage. The second is to make it more economically feasible to preserve historic structures. The third is to develop is to make our development sensitive to the historic context. And the fourth is to encourage appreciation of our rich history. So I'll do a quick overview of each of these goals and how we seek to accomplish them. So first, this is kind of where the rubber hits the road in terms of policy. So most of the objectives that will be done under Goal 1 will be to survey and designate local landmark districts and sites. So right now we have, from the past reports, we have many properties that were already earmarked as eligible or potential sites, and they need to continue down the path to actually become local landmarks, and also to become potentially, if designated, part of the New Jersey Registrar or the Federal Registrar. We also have the creation of a potential historic sites that require further investigation and potential designation. This is something that we did not previously have, and I think is really critical. Our current historic preservation ordinance has a line of, these are on the list and these aren't. And there's a lot of properties in there that could meet this criteria that's established by the 1966 Preservation Act, or by the criteria that we're using locally, but they just need further investigation. So this element has that list of potential properties that require further review, and that's a really critical part here. So, okay, goal number 2 is to make it more economically feasible to preserve these historic structures. So I think everybody knows that it's expensive to own a historic home. It's expensive to renovate and improve and maintain homes of a certain age. And we want to reduce the barriers to prevention. So a few of the ideas that are best practices in historic preservation are contemplated here. One of those, as Village President Cullum had mentioned, was the permission of accessory dwelling units. Now, when we were, it feels like a lifetime ago, 2 years ago, I think we had a year and a half ago, we had an in-person session, and it was the first time that we had brought the accessory dwelling units around. And I was kind of waiting for the backlash on this, and I'm thinking that this would be an idea that people would really not want. And I could not believe the amount of support that we had. And there were so many people who said, we want to stay in our big old home, but we don't need all of it. What can we do here? And the support came for accessory dwelling units was so tied hand in hand with the historic preservation of these beautiful big old homes. And that actually can offset costs, which can help maintain an older property. So, that's I think a great strategy for economic feasibility for preservation. Second is to create bulk and other incentives for properties that are contributing. For example, we can reduce cost of applications for properties within certain districts, or provide more relaxed standards so that things can be done with permits instead of applications once they're designated as a local landmark. We also have strategies to increase our opportunities to access funding and support from our public and nonprofit actors. So, for example, if we became a certified local government, that would enable the village to apply for grants that could pay for surveys and research. And it appears that South Orange Village actually already meets many of these requirements to obtain this status. So we'd like to investigate that and potentially seek a designation. And lastly, to pursue preservation policies that prioritizes the use of tax credits and other financial incentives. So, for example, we could establish a policy to research, survey, and nominate sites as local that are designated as local landmarks to the New Jersey and National Registrars. And once those properties are listed, properties can become eligible for grants and historic tax credits, and then those can be used to subsidize the cost of maintaining historic integrity of homes and offset that cost for property owners. Okay, so goal 3, development sensitive to the historic context. This is, I think, one of the most critical because it's not just preserving what's there, but it's making sure that what comes in new, since we are, encouraging investment in new development, is compatible. So we can do this a few different ways. One of which is by encouraging high quality architecture standards and encourage in historic districts. The other is similar to what's mentioned before, but is relaxing regulatory bulk standards for historic homes. So many historic homes in town are technically illegally existing non-conforming, which means that they may not comply with height or setback or lot coverage. But by relaxing the regulatory standards for homes that are designated, they have less, they can improve their properties with less barriers. And finally, we can provide incentives for new construction to contain complementary colors and materials for a more harmonious neighborhood. So this would be, if you were in a district, but it was a new build, maybe there would be a requirement for a certain pitched roof or an inclusion of a porch, either as a requirement or an incentive. So if you were to provide materials or colors that were more in keeping with that neighborhood, you would get a bonus in some other way. So there's different avenues of both the carrots and the sticks that I think will blend historic properties and new builds, so we maintain that character even when we have new development. Okay, and the last goal here is to build appreciation of the village's rich history. So I think it's something that when you're experiencing our village, it's very obvious that it's beautiful and special. But I think that there are a lot of people that walk by special places every day and don't know what they are and why they're there. So some sort of a plaque system, a program of plaques would alert walker-bys to the historic nature and instill a sense of pride. Was something I really liked as a kid. A simple sign on a walk with my parents would, what's that? And my parents didn't know, and they would open the, oh gosh, I'm dating myself. They open up the encyclopedia or open up the books. I guess now you'd Google it and your kid would learn a lot faster. But just, small plaque programs actually just cue you to learn more and investigate more. And we also want to encourage heritage tourism. So we have on the website, there is a self-guided walking tour, but I think there are other opportunities to encourage both locals and visitors to see and appreciate our architecture and our history. And I think especially now in COVID, people are looking for things to do outside. And as we, hit the summer months, I think there are lots of opportunities for great walking tours, walking, drinking, eating tours. And I think that that would be a great way to engage the public with the history of town. And finally, establish relationships amongst our stakeholders and create strategies to promote our local heritage. So we have wonderful and dedicated people in our community and on the Historic Preservation Commission that I will work together to create, a seamless path through development applications and through, to help develop incentives for preservation and to hopefully obtain as many, grants as we can. So as always, as a planner, it's not my goal to write plans that sit on shelves, but I actually want to see how these plans turn into goals, turn into strategies that actually impact our lives. So I want to see these goals become actions. And so if anyone else is like me saying, okay, well, this sounds great in theory, but how does it work in practice? Once a master plan is adopted, the policies will be crafted amongst committee groups and professionals, and then they're turned into ordinances, which are introduced to the public for comment. So, for example, the accessory dwelling unit recommendation that we're making in the master plan doesn't necessarily mean that, or doesn't mean that tomorrow that's a policy, but it sets a vision, and then there will be an evaluation of exactly where and how they should be located, which neighborhoods. Should they only be in garages? Should they be 1 story or 2 stories? And that's, getting into the actual, how does the shovel dig the foundation to build this? And then that's drafted in and measured and adopted. So there's a lot of points of participation where if you're reading this element and thinking, how does this become an action, or I have an idea for this, like, please engage, not just in the master plan process, but also in the continuation after this, so that we can actually, keep this plan off the shelf and in our hands. And I think it'll actually really improve the way that we live and the way that we appreciate our village's rich history. So with that, Will, I think I'll turn it back to you for quality of life. And I hope that I can see everybody in person soon.
Thank you very much. All right. The quality of life element is an integrative approach to open space planning, recreation, sustainability, public health, and the village's social fabric. Now, it was very interesting for us to reflect on that while at its core, essentially all planning work boils down to elevating people's quality of life in some way or another. Yet rarely do we as planners talk about it in direct terms. We speak about how different land uses or transportation networks could improve it. But here is a plan with quality of life as its focus and not simply an ancillary topic. William Shakespeare tells us that the world is a stage and all of us players. And there's an awful lot of attention that's paid to individual behaviors. Are people eating right? Are they getting enough exercises? Are people making smart choices? But with this quality of life element is meant to serve as a practical guide for the village to set that stage, to invest in the kinds of amenities and programs that will allow residents to live their best lives. It's something we wish more communities were doing, and I think really make South Orange a trailblazer in local governance. South Orange continues to take a very proactive stance on sustainability, taking actions to limit waste, such as the recent policies to ban single-use plastic bags. And we're encouraging the village to pursue additional measures to reduce their waste and, where possible, to give waste products a second life, such as through composting or recycling. In addition, we see opportunities to improve the resiliency and efficiency of the village's energy grid through measures such as renewable energy installations, taking and undergrounding utility wires where possible, and seeing where critical facilities such as your police department or community shelters or healthcare providers can be kept up and running in the event of a greater power grid failure through new technologies such as microgrids, which allow you to make a small scale power generation for critical facilities. In conversations that I had with many residents here, and I would say that probably no other issue was raised quite as frequently in regards to sustainability in particular as stormwater management. Now, while South Orange may not have the same infrastructural challenges that plague some surrounding communities in the area, who have to contend with things like combined sewer systems and the like. The issue is still very important as it relates to preventing localized flooding and protecting the health of one of the village's most important assets, the Rahway River. And there are a lot of different approaches that can be taken, but this plan is encouraging the utilization of green infrastructure, which, in addition to its ability to better manage stormwater, also brings additional benefits such as a healthier tree canopy and innovative placemaking ideas like this downspout planter pictured here. We propose measures to protect existing trees, to improve their abilities to provide additional shade, manage stormwater runoff, manage the urban heat island effect, and for the village to also pursue locations where additional trees can be planted. Our next goal focuses on the village's park network, and not only on how that park inventory can be expanded, but also on improving access to those parks for village residents through safer and more pleasant pedestrian connections to them from, say, the downtown or schools, have residential areas. And if you tuned into the mobility presentation, and if you haven't gotten the chance to, it's, as I mentioned before, available on the village's YouTube account as well as somasterplan.com. You can hopefully see how all of these disciplines connect and how we're recognizing here, especially in these times of being cooped up in our homes all day, the equitable access to recreation is an absolute must. I believe one of the most defining features of the village is its wealth of open spaces that lie at its center. However, we recognize that there are parts of the village that are not within convenient walking distance of a park or an open space. And we tried to identify locations where additional open spaces could be created or formally brought into the village's open space roster. Along with adding to the village's open space inventory, we also want residents to be able to make better use of those facilities that already exist by making strategic investments that could reduce, say, the number of soccer games that get flooded out at Chisowitz Field, or by adding new amenities that the residents may enjoy. We came to discover in our site visits, for example, that there are a lot of disparities in available park equipment. For example, while the village can boast 17 tennis courts, it has but one basketball court, and other facilities that were frequently mentioned in outreach, such as a skate park, are not present anywhere in the village at all. So we've seen some villagers take matters into their own hands, but far better, we believe, would be a formal dedicated action to see which one of those amenities are which amenities are of most desire, and to make those investments. So while across the board, South Orange has rather favorable health statistics as compared to both the state and the county, one surprise that we found was that the village lags in its consumption of fruits and vegetables. So we made increasing access to those fresh food options and improving the local food systems a priority in this plan. We believe that it's a goal that could not only improve the health of residents, but as new technologies emerge, such as aquaponics, hydroponics, that exposing village youth could lead to future entrepreneurship opportunities, and new potential commercial uses for the village as well. And finally, as we've seen over the past year, relying on supply chains that are vulnerable to disruptions on either a local or a global scale is a somewhat risky proposition. And having your food supply sourced as locally as possible is a good way to protect its availability. And it's far more environmentally sustainable and environmentally friendly than shipping in produce from some faraway place in the Midwest or elsewhere. And finally, this plan recognizes the importance of social supports for the overall well-being of the community and proposes strategies to share resources with residents and provide avenues by which those residents can support one another. One of the most important tenets of community health work is to meet people where they're at. And so we loved to see programs such as the Village's Health Fair, and these curated walking guides like this one that's offered by the Two Towns for All Ages initiative, because they do just that. And in this plan, we sought to build on those successes by asking questions like, where could more seating or better lighting help more seniors and enjoy participating in this tour? And while our land use element discusses ways to expand the supply of housing options, we also recognize that programs such as those offered by the Community Coalition on Race to make sure that residents are equipped with the knowledge to protect themselves from losing their homes are just as important to the ultimate goal of providing safe and dignified housing for everyone. And we would like to see such programming receive a proverbial megaphone, if you will, to reach as many people as possible and to provide the best information as possible. And finally, this plan recognizes how important the arts are to the village, especially after the toll that the ongoing pandemic has taken on the industry as a whole. We believe that it will be critical for the village to invest in resources that will offer local artists opportunities to showcase their craft, and continue to support programming such as the Downtown Concert Series as soon as it's safe to do so again. So this concludes our presentation. As we said, these were not meant to be comprehensive overviews, but again, hopefully they've set you up for a more successful review of the full draft plan document that's available on somasterplan.com. This concludes our presentation. I want to thank you all for sticking with us through the week. And please, and I mean this most sincerely, please do not hesitate to contact me with any questions that you may have or feedback that you may have to offer. We absolutely want to hear from you. We need to hear from you. And if there's nothing else you took away from this presentation, please check out somasterplan.com. Take a look at the resources that are there. We've tried to make some digestible reading guides, sort of the card to accompany the big gift that you get to open in the draft plan. So be in touch, be safe, be well, and thank you very much.
Okay, so I think that concludes us tonight. Topology, thank you. Harold, thank you. Again, like tonight, if you were here because you're like historic preservation, You go to somasterplan.com, you are going to read dozens of pages of what these different properties are. What are the ages of these properties? Like, what does it mean when you put it in a master plan? And then at the local level, we start working on the process to designate these local landmarks. When it comes to our open spaces, tonight you saw the high level overview, but what does that mean tangibly when we get into our codes and we redirect resources to the things that people told us about? One of the very special things, again, the Rahway River, right? A tremendous asset. The bike lanes, the walkability, the experience with our public parks and our facilities. That's all in the mega document, the mega master plan. So if this, piqued your interest and you said, whoa, I sort of like that. What are they talking about there? You can go to the full version at, what's that website? somasterplan.com, so master plan. And Phil was with us tonight. He'd tell you, we've got formatting issues, right? We have graphic designers coming in to clean everything up, local folks from Four Elbows. We love them. So if you're seeing any formatting issues, no problem. The final document will be certainly beautiful and hopefully indicative of the vision and values of each of our amazing residents. So 3 videos, the website, we've said it more than enough, and continue to share on social media. And we'll be back in a few weeks to let you know where we are. And we take your feedback very, very, very seriously. We've been through thousands of comments, like I said, 170 ambassadors. If there was anything that was going to drive this process, it was going to be participation. So you guys are the best. Thank you so much. And we'll be talking to you soon. Good night.